Drosera is a smart contract automation protocol. So it allows devs to build a new type of smart contract called a trap. It is this smart contract that is always running constantly, and it's basically watching for things that are happening on chain.
Yo, GM. Today's guests are on a mission to make DeFi more secure, more resilient, and far less chaotic. I'm joined by FDR and Boba, co-founders of Drosera, to talk not just about security infrastructure, but about the mindsets and experiences that led them to build it. This is BlockHunters Voices, the podcast to recruit kids from the blockchain space. I'm Akim Buj, your host. Boba, FDR, welcome, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to be here. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get it on. So I want to rewind a bit and actually start from the beginning. Before Drosera, before crypto, who were you guys? What was driving you back then?
Go ahead, Boba. You take it first.
Before crypto. It feels like so long ago. Let me go back into the way back when machine.
Aged.
Yeah.
4 years. I've aged 20 years.
Before crypto, I was, doing software engineering. I worked on military GPS weapons for a couple years, and you learn a lot about the Earth and how we have all these basically nodes flying around the Earth all the time, kind of their own blockchain of sorts. Really interesting stuff. And before that, I had some culinary experience as a chef. So I had kind of a bit of a wild ride from thing to thing.
And then I was an evil stormtrooper at the NSA and Army Cyber Command. So I was the guy that was hassling everyone from a crypto perspective in the late 2010s. But no, I did. I was cyber operations specialist for about 5 years in the Army, and kind of did dual purpose work. But most of my experience was in malware reverse engineering. So, they would give you all the tools, like NSA proprietary tools to do that. So if we had issues where a local base or some outpost in XYZ area of command got hit by Chinese or the Iranians or whoever the typical adversaries of the U.S. military complex are, they would send us in to kind of extract artifacts, reverse engineer anything that we find that may have been left behind by the enemy, and then repurpose it against the enemy. I did a small stint at MIT, focused on cybersecurity, and then I actually made a project before Drosera that Boba helped me kind of get off the ground, and it's where Drosera was born from, called Groom Lake. And Groom Lake is the private military corporation of Web3. So, right now between both Drosera and Groom Lake, we're already securing something like, I think, $116 billion worth of value in the crypto industry, which nothing to sneeze at. And we've done that in 2 years. So I think we both know a thing or two about, coming from the outside perspective into crypto and being able to say, hey, this bullshit isn't working. This is the way we need to move with things, right? So that's a little about me.
Yeah, and basically, from your background in the army and holding government jobs and cybersecurity, you actually identified the problem and started building Drosera.
Yeah, I think what it was is that in crypto, you have this really common thing where echo chambers get created, or certain habits are reinforced that are hard to unseat. And I think that's kind of happened where with the security space, and I'm not knocking it because we've done them and we think they're valuable, but audits kind of act as this this pill you take, and you're kind of oh, I took the magic pill and now I'm super secure, right? And you don't think about it past that. So, when you have that outside perspective of coming in and saying, no, wait a minute, there's this entire other financial sector in the traditional world, and they have much stricter and more mature security infrastructure. Like, how do we create that for crypto without compromising the whole reason for why we're even making these decentralized products, right? Like we can't continue to make centralized security products, right? So that's kind of what brought us there. But it was valuable.
Yeah, but for someone that doesn't really speaks the language of cybersecurity and hearing for the first time, hearing Drosera for the first time, what's the simplest way to explain what it does, what it is, what's the concept behind it?
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Well, the easiest way to describe it, or the most straightforward way to describe it, is Drosera is a smart contract automation protocol. So it allows devs to build a new type of smart contract called a trap. It is this smart contract that is always running constantly, and it's basically watching for things that are happening on chain. And when conditions are met, it automatically takes action. So this is kind of like a new paradigm for smart contract technology in the space. I described Drosera as a smart contract automation protocol. It can be used as like a security automation protocol, used as a DeFi automation protocol, as a DAO workflow automation protocol, right? And it's just leveraging the core concept of smart contracts to do automation.
yeah. And the secondary component of that too is that as you start to remove more of the manual human touch required sort of ad hoc actions that have to happen at like high levels or strategic levels for big protocols or people with lots of money in a multi-sig or whatever, you actually start to introduce ways to lessen the impact of things like social engineering, right? Like people get phished all the time. They get their credentials or their seed phrase or whatever stolen. And, you're creating this like new paradigm where not only can you be more efficient, but we've also seen that greater inclusion of automation when it's structured correctly actually does make, a protocol or a company or an entity more secure, right? And I think Boba hit the nail on the head. Like the simplest explanation is in the name, because it's named after the same scientific like genus or classification for the Venus flytrap. And when you think about what a Venus flytrap does, it's naturally part of the ecosystem. It grows in the forest with everything else, right? But the minute that little bug flies and just touches, the feelers on the Venus flytrap, it's responding, right? And it plays an important role in the ecosystem to like regulate things and keep the ecosystem healthy. So,
Yeah.
I know you guys focus on how the hackers think, not just what the code does. Why does that perspective change everything?
The example I gave was I remember pitching exactly this line when we were doing like our pre-seed raise, where I would tell people every other security product in the space, they're always trying to see what kind of car the bank robber is driving to the bank. They're like, oh, are they going to come in a van? Or are they going to come in a car, truck? How are they trying to get to the bank to steal the funds, right? And I was kind of like, guys, like, why don't we just focus on the thing that 99% of the time they're targeting, which is the bank vault itself. If you're going to set up the cameras in the bank, you're not going to put the cameras looking at just the parking lot. You're going to have 20 of those looking at the door to the bank vault, right? You're going to be watching that night and day. You're going to be seeing if there's anomalies, if there's changes in TVL, or if there's just anything that you consider as like protocol lead, like, yo, this is kind of fucky, right? You want to be like, and we don't want to be, this project where it's like, hey buddy, just letting you know something funky is happening. Good luck, right? Which seems to be the like modus operandi for a lot of different products in space. We want it to be like, not only is something fucky happening, but we're responding to it in an automated way that's decentralized, so you can stay in bed, you can stay on your dinner date with your girlfriend, you can keep hanging out with your in-laws, right? It's like you don't have to go scramble and sign a multi-sig and call up a bunch of people and activate some fucking IR protocol, right? It's like it's 2025. Like we need to move past that, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, totally makes sense. And I wanna break down the traps to see exactly how do they work, both technically and strategically, for protocols trying to stay alive. Also, I saw that you recently launched a full game of chess built entirely with traps, basically for non-technical people like me that wanna try out the tech.
Yeah, absolutely. I can kind of cover what traps are at a high level. Kind of how I described earlier. It's a smart contract, right? It's written in Solidity, the kind of same language that a lot of these protocols are already built with. And it's a special kind of smart contract where it's actually able to run 24/7. So it's like, imagine a smart contract that is executing every block, right? And it's doing this in a way that's gasless, right? It's doing this outside of the bandwidth of the normal EVM, and the Drosera nodes are the ones that are running these smart contracts. And when they see conditions, the traps themselves, which is just Solidity, so anybody can kind of write any conditions they want. They see TVL drop, they see a stablecoin depeg, they see a new DAO proposal, really anything you can see on chain. You can, as the developer or the trap creator, can specify, I want this on-chain action to be triggered if these conditions are ever seen. So like a pause could be like a response, swapping something, really any on-chain action. And so another way we describe it is it's kind of like infrastructure as Solidity code. You're kind of turning smart contracts, which are kind of like, you could see them as like, fish in an ocean kind of swimming around, and we're kind of giving them like arms and legs, right? We're kind of like evolving what smart contracts are able to do.
And I think we're positioned well too, because like most other, I talked about this earlier too, but most other products, they're very reliant on like censorship or breaking composability or breaking sovereignty and things like that. And for us, it's like we have two things working in our favor. Number one is that, we're taking action in like a next block format to mitigate or contain something where it's like there's already some initiation of like a negative action, right? To like deter or prevent further sort of like growth of that negative action. And the second piece to that, and why that's actually a working and like positive model, is because most people think this shit is like Mission Impossible, where the hacker comes in and just like takes all the money in 2 seconds and they're gone. But it's like, I'm in, it's like live free or die hard, hacking the mainframe thing. And it's like, no, like you look at stuff like I don't know if it was Wormhole or Nomad, but it was like a 2-hour long exploit that was slowly draining money over time. And it's just like, they just didn't respond quick enough. They didn't have something in place to like answer that kind of threat. And like, imagine if instead of $190 million being lost, it's like maybe 200K got lost. Like that sucks, but that sucks a lot less than $190 million going out the window. So yeah, I think, just kind of to add to that.
Yeah. And as for the chess game, that really started out as something really small. Our lead Solidity engineer basically was thinking of ideas of traps and trying to think of like some complex ways to make some interesting traps. And so he thought, what if I try to do like chess entirely in Solidity? How complex would that be? And just what would that look like? It's like a fun kind of experiment. We looked at it. It was really cool. He built a small front end around it. And I was like, wow, this is really, really awesome. Like, why don't we just like deploy this on testnet and have people actually like use this? And we went ahead and we kind of like refined it more. And then we decided to deploy on testnet for just like a lot of different reasons. Non-technical people, non-devs were able to participate in our testnet without having to know anything about smart contracts, but they're able to kind of see how this technology works. Somebody makes a move on chain, and then the trap validates that move to make sure it's a legal move. And by kind of having all that complex validation logic not happening on chain directly, it actually makes the chess app itself like way cheaper than it would be if you were to do it all on chain. If you were to do it all on chain, I think there was somebody out there that did do this, and I think it was like $150 a move or something. Because it is so much validation that needs to be done to verify. Chess is a complex game, and
especially if you're on Ethereum, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so by showing
Ethereum's cheap now, so maybe
right.
Maybe you can get a discount.
No, exactly. But it became just like an interesting use case for people to understand this idea of like detection and response. And all of this is done in a verifiable way. So this allows for people to create cryptographically secure applications even.
Like I was thinking about this, I made a joke the other day. I'm really close with this guy Loris from multiplier.com, and we both play like strategy games like Civilizations or like EU4 or like kind of those like nerdy history games, like the turn-based ones and stuff. And I was just kind of like fucking around, and I was like, well, wait a minute, if you could make chess on top of Drosera using traps, couldn't you technically make like a turn-based strategy game? Couldn't you make like all kinds of different like gaming things? So there's even, we are focused on a cybersecurity and a risk use case, but like, I think there's going to be some gnarly shit that happens where people come in who are technical, who are trappers, who want to kind of like play around with the system. And you might actually start to see us move away from the typical gaming.
The original plan.
Yeah. You'll see because the typical gaming thing, it's like, there's always those jokes on Twitter where the guy's like running around and he tries to like shoot something in the crypto game, and then it like, there's a MetaMask prompt that comes up, and it's like, oh, fuck, confirm, So like maybe we can get away from that, right? We could start to kind of like have this off-chain being brought on-chain system that's optimistic, or but it's verifiable, right? It's like it's proved.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of crypto, because you start with one plan, but because multiple people contribute to everything, you can actually build something way, way different and way, way cooler.
Precisely.
That was like a big thing that we recognized as we even started the testnet was people coming in and saying, hey, like, why can't you build this, or why can't you put this together? It's like you can. And some of these ideas are stuff that we didn't even think about either. So I think that there's like a realization that this technology has much broader impact than we initially kind of set out. But I think in some way, really honing in and focusing on security allowed us to make like mission critical infrastructure with like a security first mindset, basically.
Operators play a very important role in Drosera and basically add the decentralized enforcement layer. How many operators do you plan to onboard? How many are right now on testnet? How do you prevent failure or collision in the system?
Yeah, I think maybe there's like 20 or so operator groups that are on testnet right now. And we plan to really bring in more over time, just kind of like further decentralize, further bring in people that want to support Drosera, really build out that like public set of operators. But really, like, Drosera is set up in a way where it's really flexible. You can create a trap that is being ran by your own nodes. You can spin up your own nodes and run a trap that way, or you can use your friends' nodes if they're running a node, or you could use the public set of nodes that we've added to the protocol. So you have like options to choose from in terms of flexibility.
I want to talk a little bit about the market conditions because right now we are in a tough market. We have low volume, high fatigue. How do you think about building critical infrastructure in such a moment?
It kind of sucks. I'll be honest with you. Dude. I think I'm like the fucking Grim Reaper of crypto because every single time that I'm like, okay, I think we're gonna do another fundraise, the whole market just fucking explodes. Every single time I have that thought, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe do like Series A soon or like strategic round. It's like the market. So we've done like 2 fundraises back to back now in like non-ideal conditions because we started this in 2023. It was like right after the FTX bullshit happened in 22. It was like fuck, you know. And then you know last year it was like you had this bump in Q1 and you know things were looking good, and then all of a sudden May hits, and it was just like, you know, so it's like you know you can't really catch a break. But I mean for me it's like I don't know. I have a weird view on things. Like you can probably notice that from our test net, just from like how we you know participate or interact with the community, that we're not doing this like and I don't mean anything against them, it's just like that's their model, we have a different model where it's like you know the Berachain test nets or like the stuff with you know movement or even like our homies at Union, it's like huge momentum, huge hype, like lots of people just like coming in. And you know we were trying to be more of like you know there's riches in the niches, there's like this really specific vertical that we're focused on, and it is a more technical vertical, right? And I think the more that we start to like just have an open dialogue with like a DEX or a lending protocol or some DAO or whoever, it's like we can explain to them in 30 minutes and get buy-in in that same call to say like, why not just deploy a trap? Why not just do one? Why not do one for one specific use case that's like pain in the ass for you? Something you don't really want to trust to human error, or like, you know, I talked about this earlier. So the sales process, I say sales, but go to market has actually been like really easy because we're very focused, right? We're a very focused product. I think what's going to be harder as time goes on is like, you know, we view Drosera as sort of the release of all of this money that could potentially come from retail and institutions, because right now retail and institutions, like the market's bad, but the risk profile in crypto is bad no matter what, right? Even when we have a bull market or we've got like these positive trends, it's like, damn, do I really want to park my life savings on this plan? You know, it's like, and so we're trying to be the thing where it's like, oh, these guys, you know, protocol A uses Drosera, but protocol B doesn't. I feel much more comfortable using protocol A, right? We want to be that force, I think, in the industry.
Yeah, I think this is a very strong USP, and it's something that is very understandable for a non-technical guy.
Yeah.
Where do you think we are in the market cycle right now?
Oh, it kind of depends. I think if you see, and this is like my finance hat on for a second, but I think if you start to see a situation where, because the Fed had an emergency meeting on Monday. That was a closed door meeting. They didn't share any notes with the public. I haven't checked it yet to see if anything came from it. But you have potential for something that's really bullish, where maybe Jay Powell and the Fed come out and they say, we're going to accelerate rate cuts. So that's a huge injection of potential stimulus and like global liquidity overall, right? And then if you combine that with the fact that maybe China blinks and they embark on greater stimulus spending at the same time to offset tariffs or like economic issues in their own country, well, that's an explosion. That's the kind of concoction you need for like a DeFi summer 2.0. Until we see that, it's kind of like, you know, I'm kind of sitting on the sidelines just watching.
Uncertainty, exactly.
Yeah.
That's
and
the
even
best
personally,
way to
I'm fully liquid. Like I don't have anything parked right now. Like I got out, you know, a couple months ago, and I'm just waiting for things to be less.
I feel like all the smart people got out like in December or something.
Yep. So I was messing with that. Yeah. The only thing I didn't get out of was Bitcoin, but you know, I mean,
but Bitcoin is still doing good. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's holding. You know, it's fine. So.
Do you think protocols more or less are willing to invest in security right now? Do you think this is gonna become like baseline for everybody? What's like the vibe on the ground?
I'll touch on this lightly. I know I've been hogging up the mic. Sorry, Boba. But I think for this, it's like when you have a very constricted market and when you have people competing within that restricted market, you are always looking, right, as a businessman to differentiate yourself against your competitors or to provide some extra reason for people to use your platform or come to you. So to me, it's like, you know, if you can be in a period of heavy uncertainty from a fiscal perspective, and all of a sudden your protocol reduces uncertainty from a fiscal and risk perspective by using Drosera, then as a businessman, I say, you know, I would take that opportunity, right? And that's the way we think about it. So, you know, I think we're in a very, I don't want to say recession-proof, right? Like knock on wood, but I think we're in a very strong sector of the market where, you know, people need to be secure no matter what.
Exactly.
And I think it's, yeah, as long as it's at a viable price point, right? As long as it's at a price point that makes sense and it's not, you know, heavy fiat burn or you're not eating into your treasury because you can't raise soon. Or, yeah, I think it's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I think like we know that protocols know that they need to consider security. But I think they just need help to really identify like what that means. I think for a lot of protocols that have like VC funding, it's pretty easy for them to like go and find like different types of services to pay for audits and all that other stuff. But like for the smaller builders of like, you know, 2 people making like a protocol, I think it's kind of difficult for security, and that's why we need to have simple and cheap solutions that are like accessible to anybody in the space.
So basically, Drosera is going to be accessible to the little guy also.
Yeah, it should be. It should be available to anyone that wants to be able to use traps for security reasons, for trading reasons, for anything. Yeah, there has to be a solution out there.
It's like like it has B2B context, obviously, but like there's no reason a trader who's, you know, really active or has a lot of like disparate sort of positions, like why can't he launch a trap and fund it with like $500 worth of value for a year to like watch things? And like that's just more margin for the operators, right? They're not going to say no to, you know, a couple extra bucks every month to just watch this in an off-chain like cheap compute type of way, right? So I think the market is completely wide open, right? I have a hard time doing the slide on the fundraise deck where it's like, what's your total addressable market? I mean, it's the whole fucking industry, I guess. Right? I mean, I don't know. Really know how to answer that, right? But yeah.
On a more personal note, Boba, FDR, what's a moment, personal or professional, that completely reshaped your worldview?
What would it be?
Wow, I'm getting personal now.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, you know, working in the kind of like military GPS kind of industry, was like very corporate. I think I like realized that I wanted it, and also in that space, like it's not open. You know, all that stuff is very private. You know, it's all like confidential, etc.
You can talk with the guys at the beer.
Yeah, but at least what I wanted to be able to do, what I realized is that I wanted to be able to work with people in a more open fashion, like from people all over the world, people from different perspectives, and I didn't want to kind of like work in this like kind of like closed off industry where I couldn't talk to somebody about like what I was building or how I was building it or like how something was designed, etc. And so, yeah, I don't know. I realized at one point that I just kind of wanted to work with people from all over the world. And that's kind of what brought me to crypto in some sense.
Yeah, I'll piggyback that. I have a funny story. So it was like the height of the COVID pandemic. And you got to understand, like when you're working at the agency or you're doing anything like cyber related, you're usually in what we call a skiff, which is like the windowless building. It's got the barbed wire. You have to have like a key card to get in. You can't bring your phone because you're handling sensitive info and you're kind of sharing between everyone else in the intelligence.
And you can compromise everything by bringing your phone, for example.
Exactly, or an Apple Watch, right? So like
or
you're talking
any device.
Yeah, you're talking with CIA, you're talking with DIA, like everybody. And I remember, because of how bad the pandemic had gotten, we weren't really doing mission that often anymore because you couldn't be co-located, you couldn't really be in the skiff at the same time as other people. And I remember I took leave one time because it was the first startup that I was kind of moonlighting, like working part-time with while I was in the Army. And I went to like San Mateo. It was with Franklin Templeton. It was this very like, it had that feeling of like big things were happening, strategic. Like we were making something special, and like we had eyes on us from like the second biggest asset manager in the world after James Street, right? And then I remember like my leave ended, and I came back to the base, and again, we're not doing mission or anything. And my first sergeant, he comes to me and he's like, "Hey, I need you to go in the men's bathroom, and I need you to hang up posters for the fucking potluck that we're gonna have this Friday." So I'm sitting there in the fucking bathroom on base, like hanging up posters, and I just had this like moment. To quote Pulp Fiction, I had what the alcoholics call a moment of clarity, right? And as I was hanging up these posters, I'm like, I gotta get the fuck out of here, right? I gotta go build what I'm gonna build. I have to go, strike my own destiny. And like Boba said, it's like you can't do that in these corporate structured like hellscapes that really the traditional world, even traditional startup land, forces you to move into, right? So you can ask anybody who's ever worked with Drosera, anybody who's like with us today. It's like we have a very laissez-faire way and culture of doing things, and it's been wildly successful. Like everyone has like really high morale, and I think high morale wins the day, right? You have to trust your people to execute. So
yeah, but at the end of the day, on a more positive note, I feel like the corporate world also really teaches you discipline, and I see that in crypto. A lot of folks don't really know what discipline is because they didn't really have real jobs before entering the space. They are not really very grounded and very disciplined.
I think like people have to have like the experience, right? They have to have the experience, I think, of like working in that kind of space to know, like, see the difference between like what they're doing in crypto and what they were doing before, so that they can understand the kind of like vast difference between the two worlds. And you do get to learn some other skills that are in that space that are good.
It's a huge indictment of our industry that the largest ETH conference this year is on the fucking French Riviera, where everybody's just going to be flexing. They're going to be having yacht parties and blowing VC money. It's like, why the fuck are we doing it in southern France? Like, it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but like, why would you pick southern France? I don't know. Whatever. That's
especially that you don't have an airport directly to Kanye.
Right? Like,
you have to take a train or the car.
Oh god, it's like, bearish. I won't be there. I will stay my happy ass in the Caribbean this summer. So I'm not doing it.
How do you both handle pressure right now? I mean, burnout, overwork, market conditions, everything that's happening in the global economics. Do you have like any special habits, routines, rituals that ground you?
I mean, I think like a lot of people in this space, and really software and startups in general, have probably dealt with like overwork and burnout. I think it's, for me personally, I think it's about like taking wins when you get them, and recognizing too that like success is a like ever receding horizon. So if you're like constantly chasing that carrot, like you'll definitely burn out. What you should do instead is enjoy the process of what you're doing every day, and the name of the game is really to be like consistent. Consistently like shaving away that marble statue, and being like aware of your hard work. Like if you don't realize your hard work, like you'll never get like the self-satisfaction. Because like you're not going to really get that from other people. You may, but you have to like recognize it within yourself.
Totally makes sense. I mean,
Yeah, I think for me, it's like I do like when I'm here in Puerto Rico, I do boxing. So I train with the Olympic team here in Puerto Rico. I was a boxer in the Army, and I think just like fitness in general. You know, you see guys like the Monad folks, or even Union now is like ZK Gym and stuff. It's like
Nice.
I think crypto has a really bad burnout aspect, not because of the fact that the work is like it's really not that demanding, and I think the culture in the industry is really chill. Like it's almost
it's
like
the 24/7 market conditions and everything,
it's just
and
like
a lot of noise.
Yeah, just constantly focus on shit. Now you got to unplug, go work out, go for a run, like do something. You know what I mean? And then I don't know. That helps my mental quite a bit. So I think exercise. Yes.
You FDR mentioned earlier turn-based games and even Pulp Fiction. I myself am a big pop culture fan, and I was wondering who or what is shaping how you think right now. Any books, thinkers, podcasts, everything that.
Ooh, books, thinkers, and podcasts.
Or in the past, something that shaped you.
I think
you guys.
I'm not going to say that I agree with. I'm not going to say I agree with maybe some of their methodologies, but there's a lot of people right now in the pop culture sort of megaphone that are bringing back this idea of being a very like intrepid or initiative-taking, like masculine male in the current era, right? Which I appreciate because I've always been a very spontaneous person. I think you have to be to like succeed in crypto and succeed as like an entrepreneur. But you've got guys like, I mean, Trump himself is a great example of this. You know, you have Kanye's crazy ass who's just kind of like, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to blitz what I want. I'm going to make my own destiny. I'm not going to rely on other people, etc. And it's like, I don't know. I think some of that can be pretty inspiring for me personally, because again, it's like it even ties back to the corporate discussion topic where you're put in a box, right? And I hate being put in a box. Like that's like my worst nightmare is being in some golden cage where you have to act a certain way and you know, you got to do things, you know, a certain way. I want to go back to the idea of like, you know, the Bronze Age man, where it's like it's you and your guys, you know, the people you trust, the people that you love. It's like this loyal band of merry men that are going out and striking their destiny. And I think that's the modern equivalent of that is like a startup. It's a company that you create and build. So
yeah. I don't know that I have any like, you know, podcasts or thinkers like maybe particularly, but piggybacking off of what FDR is saying, like, yeah, I think just working with the people like around me, the people around me are a lot of like very diverse thinkers. No, we're not really in an echo chamber. We have a lot of like different opinions, and like kind of surrounding myself with those people helps me to kind of like stay grounded and understand like people's like perspectives. And I kind of have this like ongoing joke that like I think actually a way to have I don't know, like even in a startup land, some amount of success I think comes from the fact that like you should collect comic book characters, like people who have like very like, you know, specific unique personalities, you know, people that you could like see in a comic book as like main characters, and like those are the people that I feel like kind of form your world like around you, you know.
Sounds great, and thank you for that. Moving ahead, what does success look like for Drosera in the next 12 to 24 months? I feel like I already have the answer to this question. Like any protocol should use Drosera if it wants to be safe for the users, but maybe you want to add more to this?
I think just becoming a standard, right? I think especially 12 to 24 months, I consider that like medium term to long term, right? It's like we want to become something that's like, oh, you know, why, you know, if a VC is doing a due diligence questionnaire for a project, they already ask, they say like, when are you going to do an audit? You know, when was your latest audit? Who audited you, right? So audits are already in the zeitgeist.
The standard.
Yeah, they're the standard. And I think like, you know, if audits are kind of this like point in time sort of like save game checkpoint for your project, well, it would be really nice if like even between those two checkpoints you had something like Drosera that complements the audit that becomes a standard, right? So my hope is that if there's 100,000 venture calls that are happening every given year or more, you know, at some point in those venture calls they say, what are you doing to address risk in your project, right? Especially if you're going to be working in the US, if you're going to be a US company that services US persons, et cetera. Like, you know, even with my other company, we started doing political advocacy and going to Washington, D.C. and to Parliament in the UK even, and soon Dubai, to talk about like, hey, you know, when you're considering legislation, when you're considering like what it means to be like a, you know, regulatory, you know, a cool company in the US, yeah, you want to have all these other, you know, financial risk things in place, but you also want to have this idea of like a standard from a security perspective, right? Because that just makes the country healthier. It stops, you know, our industry from being viewed as like a money laundering operation for North Korea, right? It's like, it actually, I think, would release a lot of barriers to the wider market than we anticipate. So that's kind of my long-term vision, right?
Yep.
And are you planning to expand beyond Ethereum to even non-EVM ecosystems?
Not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Not anytime soon, but
Yeah. If anything, it'd be like L2s, probably. Just like EVM compatible L2s. Yeah, we've already done some testing, to be honest, on Base and Polygon, and verified Drosera works on those L2s. But I think like, you know, we're building like a rocket ship, right? And so we're trying to make our home base on Ethereum, and then kind of like expand to different ecosystems from there, right?
How do you feel about Ethereum right now?
I think like Ethereum itself, it's definitely changed, especially in culture. The technology has gotten better, and we've seen like lots of improvements. But I think the culture is definitely changed a bit, because people want to figure out like, you know, how do we bring in more people into the space? How do we like ensure that this thing can like sustain itself? How do we bring more builders into this thing? So I think people are really searching for a lot of like questions. They're really looking for, you know, what does like Ethereum stand for, and like what is Ethereum going to look like going forward, and how is it going to keep up? You know, those are the questions that I see, and I think like I see a lot of like positivity. I see a lot of really good things. You know, people who are building really cool tech that not very many people are talking about yet. You know, including like Drosera, right? But you know, I think like people, like the market sentiment, I think overall is probably like the biggest factor, probably.
Yeah, and it benefits us as a business, just in like, because there's different like contexts or paradigms that people view Ethereum in, where some people are like, there's too many L2s, or like the L2 thing was a mistake or whatever. But for us, it's like one of the other really big use cases for Drosera is that we are the only security product that really addresses dependency risk. So, you know, in an Ethereum landscape where there are a lot of L2s, or there's like disparate positions and diasporas of value and money, and, you know, there's something happening on this L2, but it has to work with this project to do this thing, you all of a sudden get this massive web, this tangled web of protocol A is building off of protocol B using protocol C, which connects to protocol D, right? And when you have those kind of systems in place, it actually just lends greater, I guess, need, right, to something like Drosera existing, because you have to protect all those different highways. You have to be able to tell protocol A, like, not only can you use Drosera to protect your stuff, but you can also use it to protect against other people's environments being compromised, right? Like spillover or some kind of mint attack that comes to your ecosystem. Like that's valuable, I think, to people. So it's both like an insular looking security product and a community derived sort of security or risk product. So
sounds good. I don't usually like to ask these kind of questions because we worked with over 50 chains on testnet So only if you want, or if you have any idea, when can we expect mainnet and stuff like that. I know it's very hard to tell at this point, but only if you have something that you think is relevant.
Sorry, what was the question again? Can you repeat it?
When can we expect like mainnet
mainnet soon?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like, we would like to be able to shoot for the year. Shoot for being able to do mainnet this year. I think like already the progress we've made has been really, really solid. And things are chugging in the right direction, whether it's from audits, benchmarking from testnet, like getting more people involved in the community. I think we're set up really well. But I think like we're really going to play it by ear to see when it'll happen.
Yeah. And I don't think like it's a rush right now. Probably the project to go mainnet, but maybe without a token or something like that.
Yeah, we're not going to do the token at the same time. Yeah, I mean, our original plan was, it was like sometime June, maybe July, and then you give it like a few months, and then after that you kind of introduce.
Makes more sense. Exactly.
It's more responsible, and I'm not going to say that we're dependent on market conditions to go to mainnet, but at the same time, like we are watching the market and we are looking for ways to kind of like, if we can get more time to make a more refined product before we go live, then like sure, we'll take it, right? But at the same time, like we are still moving fast and breaking things, right? So
we are entering the last chapter of the podcast, and we want to wrap things up with some rapid fire questions to get the sense of where your head's at when it comes to crypto. But for this one, just quick top of mind answers. What's the most underrated and overrated idea in crypto right now?
Boba, go.
Underrated apps that people want to actually use, and even if they're silly, like people don't realize like the internet is full of a bunch of silly things, and that's what makes it great. Like we should bring that back. Overrated, honestly, I gotta say it's probably AI. I think people really don't understand AI. But I think it's fun. Like it can be a fun thing, but I just think the hype is real.
Yeah, I'll agree with both of those.
What are your top 3 crypto apps that you use personally?
1inch, Synapse, Aave. Those are probably the
DeFi,
top 3.
Classic DeFi stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff, the stuff that just like works.
I'm gonna say Hyperliquid. I'm really bullish on Hyperliquid. I think they have a really great UX, like great products. I'd probably say I'm a big MetaMask stan. I use MetaMask.
I'm a Rabbi man. I don't use it.
Really?
I don't use MetaMask anymore.
No? Okay.
No.
I mean, I've thought about like moving over, but it's just like I don't know. I'm so used to MetaMask and just like having everything plugged up to it. Using my Ledger or my Trezor with it. So, and then third, bro, it's got to be Drosera Chess.
That's right.
Because I love my chess. You know what I mean? So.
What's a crypto opinion you've completely changed your mind over the past year?
I think like a part of building, I think my perspective has changed a bit. I think like crypto apps that people actually want is like a really big thing. I think like recognizing that really it's not quite, the tech is not quite as important as like the experience. Like people need to have like a good experience when using an application. There shouldn't be such a focus on the technology, although all the nerds in the chat really like the technology, and there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, that's just reality.
For me, I think I think it would be like the idea that maybe a year ago, and you can even see this in like our seed deck, and we did our last fundraise, we had this idea that like security in crypto could be very collaborative, where we work with some of the centralized products, make them less centralized, or to help them get like go to market, or they could kind of integrate with Drosera to make things happen, blah blah. And it's like actually the brutal raw reality that we're seeing now that the chips have kind of like fallen where they are is that we live in a world of scarcity, And any protocol that's going to spend on security, it doesn't matter if you're a different type or different vertical of security product. It's like they still have a finite budget that they're willing to spend and put out on these things. And so for me, it's like, do I want to work with audit companies? Yes. Do I want to, see them charging $300K for an audit? No. And I anticipate that as Drosera gets more adoption in the market, you're actually going to start to see more normalization of fees for audits, right? You're not going to see this world anymore where people are getting charged, an arm and a leg just for some guy to look at your code once every 6 months or once a year or whatever it might be, right? So I think that's going to be a net positive. And I think for us, it's like Drosera is here to play. We're here to win. And we are here to be like part of any team's security budget and produce value that's like 10x what they're giving to us, right, through the product. So,
One piece of advice you'd give to new builders entering the space?
I know this one very well. There's like so much information in the space. Like coming in as a builder, it's super overwhelming. Like it's like a fire hose of information. My piece of advice would be just kind of start building out an app that you would want to use. Something simple, something small, but something that like you want to be able to share with people, maybe something that you want to be able to use and show off, and just start there. Experience over time, it'll feel a lot less like a fire hose, and you'll start to like understand what's going on.
I would say keep your eye on the prize. So like if you have an idea and it's something that you want to create, you're going to see market sentiment shift. You're going to see things move around. You're going to see people talking about this hype thing or this cool thing, and you're sometimes
don't follow the hype.
Don't pivot. Don't try to change up what you're trying to do. It's like you remember why you're here, right? Remember why you're doing what you are doing. Whatever it is, it's going to come back around, right? Like if you're addressing a real problem in the industry, even if it's not like the hot thing right now, like this is an opportunity-based industry. When you see your opportunity, if you can move quickly and seize the opportunity, you're going to win, right? You're going to succeed. So.
And before you wrap this up, guys, where can people follow the Drosera and stay updated?
If you're technical, you should join our Telegram chat. We have a Drosera Builders Telegram chat that we'd love to add you to. So you can hit me up on Twitter, or you can shoot me a reply, or Boba. We'll get you added. And then otherwise, we also have a more like retail focused community chat on Telegram as well. I'm not really big on Discord just because Discord has a lot of like security flaws and like things you can do with like webhook attacks and stuff. So I'm not terribly active on the Discord. I apologize for that to any of my Turkish homies that are watching. I know I pop in there every now and then, but yeah, I think those are the best places. And Twitter, I mean, we're very active on Twitter. So.
Yes. Thank you for this, guys. It's a wrap. It was a blast. I really learned a lot today. I mean, that's why we do this kind of stuff, to educate myself and the people out there.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. We love having the platform. So
yeah, anytime.
Thank you, man.
Have a great one, guys.
All right. We'll see you, man.